Marley from the Energy Boutique with your energy and ascension forecast for Sunday, August 14th to Saturday, August 20th. So last week we had a pretty monumental week, a pretty energetic and intensified week with the Lionsgate portal that of course took place on 8/8, definitely pressurized us. We were definitely feeling that tug of war, feeling torn into because we had some major decisions to make, not only from our ego self here in this conscious awareness of this 3D reality, but our higher self that likely made some decisions that we're not even privy to as of yet. The Lionsgate portal was definitely a potent portal of energy. Many people definitely felt the negative aspects of that and really started wondering and questioning whether they had missed the boat on manifesting. Just to clarify, no, you did not. Half of the time, anytime that we have a high energy portal such as the Lionsgate, many of us do feel very heavy, very weighted, very negative, very triggered, very activated. Why? Because it is a huge jump in energy. It is amplifying the conscious collective. And what I will say is one pattern that I've noticed very, very evidently is that those of us light workers that have been awake and activated for quite a long time, we are acting as anchors. And many times in high energy vibrational portals, such as the Lionsgate, us awakened light workers feel the weight of the collective crashing down upon us. Why? Because there's a group of people that need to stand in the higher vibrations and frequencies to get activated, to make the jump, to ascend to the next level of consciousness and enlightenment that many of us awakened light workers have already reached, have already ascended to. Therefore, there's a huge amount of people that reached out to me around the Lionsgate portal that felt very low, very slow, very depressed, very weighted, very stuck. And again, came with a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety that they missed the boat on, manifesting because they were stuck in a funk instead of trying to sit in the positive vibes. Just be aware that if you are an individual that tends to feel the lower vibrations and frequencies on the days that we have very high potent energy, it's because you are an anchor for New Earth. You are basically alchemizing the dark shadow of the collective, which does not feel good, in order for a chunk, a group of people within the collective to actually absorb those high vibes and see the shift happen a lot quicker than what we would be seeing sitting in the funk, sitting in the darkness. So if you have that kind of experience, don't worry. Your higher self knows exactly where it is that you need to be, will never, ever miss the boat for you. And again, just remind yourself that if you are sitting in the funk on these high vibe energy days, it's because you have a very important role to do, which is anchoring in the energy into Mother Earth, allowing yourself to be a conduit for the shadow work that is being done on the collective level, where we get to bring it into our physical bodies and alchemize it, raising the vibration and frequency through our perception, understanding, and healing modalities that we quickly shift the next day or even the day after. It's not very long that we have to bear the weight of the world on our shoulders, so to speak, but it is definitely a little bit disappointing and a little bit of a deterrent when we are finding ourselves in these magical high vibe days and feeling lower than ever. We really rode the coattails, so to speak, of that Lionsgate portal all the way into the 11th when we had Venus move into Leo. Thank freaking goodness we're out of that Cancer energy. And Venus moving into Leo just opened up our heart space, opened up our heart chakra, which the Lionsgate portal, it's all about that heart chakra activation. Our heart chakra needs to be open. It essentially is the middle ground between the lower chakras that keep us stuck here in this physical body, in this physical 3D reality, and connects us to the higher realms of chakras that keep us connected to the collective and to the cosmos, the higher realms of intelligence. So it is the middle ground. That's why when we have, weeks where there's a lot of heart chakra activations, we feel every emotion under the sun that our heart could ever experience. It is a tug of war. It is a back and forth. It does feel expansive and then like somebody just cracked our heart chakra wide open, but it is the electrical source, the magnetic field that creates our energetic aura. Again, I'm going to be diving into some episodes to help us understand the energy centers, especially the heart chakra, because it is kind of the connector that needs to be wide open to anchor in the lower chakras to our physical realm, and of course, keep us very connected to the universal consciousness through the higher realms of chakras as well. So Venus being in Leo, we still have to adjust to this energy. It's definitely going to take us on a wild ride in our heart space, identifying, new worth, new values, new vibrations, new wants, needs, and desires to truly express ourselves, to stand in our raw, vulnerable truth, to pursue new passions, new desires. All of that is being activated. But of course, a lot of that was overshadowed by the full moon in Aquarius. Now, if you're joining me Friday evening, first of all, I want to thank you for being here. But I also want to let you know we're still very much in this full moon Aquarian energy. The day after a moon event, we have a lunar hangover. Now, many people yesterday, while we were building towards the full moon peak energy, had a hard time. They were feeling low and slow and weighted and really cluster-effed in their head and really torn and not high vibe at all. If you had that experience as we built towards the direct potent energy of the full moon, it's likely that you're feeling a lot better today. Or vice versa. If you felt great yesterday, you're likely feeling a little bit low and slow and hungover here today. Just know that we are riding this particular energy into the weekend. We do have the Lionsgate portal kind of coming to a very slow close, a slow end, if you will. We're moving out of that energy. And as we move into next week, it is going to feel like time kind of stands still in a way, because we're gifted an opportunity to stabilize this energy that has just been a lot to handle and process this week. So what do we got going on this week? Well, like I said, they are giving us a little tiny bit of a break to adjust, to acclimatize to this new energy, to these new light codes. Now, one would say, well, where's the transformation? Where's the change? It hasn't happened yet. Well, y'all got to be patient. Y'all don't realize that we don't see the physical manifestation of what the changes we just got downloaded with until Virgo season. Why? Because Virgo season is an earth energy where we actually get to start bringing to life new foundations, new routines. We get to reorganize, restructure our lives based off of the new light codes that got activated through the Lionsgate portal, the new wants, needs, and desires that got activated and opened up through Leo season. We actually start working with them. We actually get to bring them to life. We get to see the actual physical manifestation of them through Virgo season. So this is the last week. We're moving into the last week of Leo season, where we really get to identify what it is that our heart and soul wants. We have to reflect over what Leo season was all about, which was cracking us open, making us raw and vulnerable to get in alignment with our most vulnerable self, our highest truths, our highest form of soul's expression, and really get in touch with what makes us happy, what we're passionate about, what we currently desire, and of course, unleash that boldness, that bravery, that courage that we've been lacking in order to actually go after it. So we will start being a little bit more in your face with all of the magical things that have been happening to us as we move into Virgo season. But first, this week, we have the last quarter moon taking place at 26 degrees in Taurus. This will be taking place on the 19th. A couple of things about this. Again, go back and listen to the August energy forecast, the intro that I put out. I touched on this just a little bit to give you an overview of the highs and lows of the whole month and how it pieces together and how we're being set up and prepared for certain shifts, for certain changes. First of all, the last quarter moon is always a full circle accumulation and realization of the whole moon cycle. We have to go back to the new moon in Leo. Then we had the first quarter moon in Scorpio. Then we had the full moon in Aquarius. Well, the last quarter moon always brings everything full circle. A lot of things that take place get illuminated under the full moon don't even make sense to us until the end of the lunar cycle. That's why it's important to subscribe to the moon guide so that you know the cycle that we're moving into each and every single month, so that you're not surprised by the highs and the lows, the ups and the downs, and the realizations that we have to come to by the time the lunar cycle ends. The last quarter moon taking place in Taurus is going to be one of a realization in our physical realms. Taurus energy, physical realm, physical body, happiness, pleasure, joy, new confidence, new self-esteem, new values, new worth, new relationship, want, needs, and desires, new realization where money matters are concerned. We're bringing everything full circle. There's been a lot that has popped off in this particular lunar cycle. Even more than that, taking place at 26 degrees. Why is that important? Well, because we had a 26-degree lunar eclipse event, solar eclipse event on the Taurus and Scorpio axis back in April and May. We are in the true node axis of this Taurus and Scorpio energy and life lesson on what needs to die in order for us to have room and space to give birth and create new elements. This is an ongoing lesson. And having this Taurus last quarter moon at 26 degrees is not only wrapping up the lunar cycle that we began under the new moon in Leo, it's bringing something full circle into full realization from April and May. Okay, we got to go back to the eclipse energy in order to see what was thrown at us, what was gifted to us, what was removed from our lives, what was shook up in our physical realms where routines, relationships, and money matters were concerned. And because the new moon in Leo set off this new lunar cycle, cracking us wide open to get very raw and vulnerable with what it is that our heart wants, we've had, again, first quarter moon in Scorpio, a realization of where it is that we need to take action in order to put something to death, in order to actually have the space to create something new. The full moon in Aquarius we just had yesterday should be triggering some aha moments, some revelations, some inspirations on where change is needed the most. And by the time we get to the end of this week, there will be lots of information and lots of details coming in between the full moon in Aquarius and that last quarter moon in Taurus that will totally change the game of the foundation that we're going to get to building and creating as we move into Virgo season. And we're wrapping up the last week of Mars being in this Taurus energy. Okay. So I'm not going to say it was a bad transit because, we discovered a lot. We unearthed a lot, especially where our confidence, where our self-esteem was concerned. We reactivated our physical bodies, the want, need, and desire for happiness, joy, and pleasure. We definitely got down to the nitty gritty on what it is that we have to have tunnel vision on as far as what it is that we want to bring to life and actually create in our realm. But it is time to leave this low and slow earth energy behind for the intellectual mental plane of Gemini. It is going to be quite a whirlwind of energy, quite a tough love life lesson from now until January of 2023. Why? Because Mars is going retrograde. Always a tough aspect. We are going to dive more into that. Again, if you want a little bit of a summary and a refresher, go listen to the August energy intro, and I will have a full astro forecast coming at you later on this week on what we can expect with Mars moving into Gemini. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because anytime we are wrapping up a particular life lesson in a particular energy, we always reach that crisis mode, that full circle mode where we really have to bring everything all together. There's an intensity, there's a pressure, there's an urgency that we will be experiencing. Not only the day before Mars moves into Gemini, which is the 20th, it also happens to be, you guessed it, that last quarter moon in Taurus at that 26 degree. We are going to be feeling all kinds of feels. So that's what we got going on this week. Now, before I jump into the Ascension symptoms, a couple things I want to talk about, a couple of things I want to address. First of all, like always, I just want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for the likes, for the comments, for the shares, for the love, for the support. But what I want to talk about more specifically is I want to thank you all so freaking much for the love and support that you all showed me and gave me from last week's episode. Not only about the pups, and I'm super glad that you guys enjoyed seeing a little bit of a snippet of the puppy life that I got going on here. I appreciate all the love. He does too. But I want to thank you because, as you know, Last week, I went on a little bit of a disheartening rant about some of the people that I've been frustrated with that aren't doing the work, that are constantly disappointing me in humanity sense because of their lack of accountability and responsibility. And what I didn't realize and what I wasn't counting on is the amount of messages, the amount of DMs, the amount of emails in my inbox from y'all that are okay. Okay, this is amazing. I had one special soul. You know who you are. Okay, hopefully you're not back in the woods, and hopefully you're able to be tuning in to this particular Ascension forecast and hearing this live. But I had one beautiful soul reach out to me and just remind me that, you know what, the amount of people that aren't okay may be large and they may be in my face all the time, but that there's a whole huge group of people that are doing just fine, that my forecast, that my information, that my content acts as a validation for those that are on this path, that aren't whining, that aren't complaining, that aren't struggling, that aren't running away from the responsibility and the accountability that they have to have with themselves, and that they're just in the background, silent. And what was amazing is that the email that came in from this beautiful soul was so validating for me that guess what? Just as I, maybe had missed, there's likely more people listening to my energy forecasts every day that are doing just fine, that are A-okay, that, are just living their life and doing the work, and that are, just chugging along, than there are people that aren't. The people that I hear about, the whiners, the complainers, the ones that aren't accountable, the ones that aren't responsible, the ones that aren't doing the work, they have to be the same kind of fraction as the light workers out in the world. Everybody seems to look around in the world and see all the ugliness and see all the sleepers and see all just, the pain and the suffering, because us light workers are spread out so few and far between that we are spread out few and far between over the earth so that we can act as an energetic grid to kind of hug the earth and suck up the bad vibes of the sleepers and the ugliness and alchemize that and transmute it in order to anchor in, again, the vibrations and frequencies of New Earth. And so what this email did for me is not only did it open my heart and make me feel really good that, there are people out there that are just, quiet, that are doing okay, that do really benefit from my content, from my information, because it acts as a stability, as a support system, as a validation for them in their own journey. But it also just made me super aware that, the amount of people that are still sleeping, that are whiners and complainers, are very, very small compared to us light workers, the activated ones that are out here every single day, hitting the pavement, doing the shadow work, doing what needs to be done in order to evolve in our own lives. And of course, help the collective evolve because of the work that we're doing. So I want to thank that individual very, very much. You know who it is that you are, sending you super, super, super amounts of love. But what this also did is it triggered a domino effect. And this seems to happen, right? Energy attracts energy. And so after this email, I got another email from a beautiful soul that said, you know what? Just wanted to let you know that I'm doing okay, that your information helps so much that, you know what? I wouldn't know where I was at if I didn't constantly get the validation from you that I'm on the right path. And I just wanted to reach out and let you know that I'm not whining. I'm not complaining. I'm not looking for a handout or a freebie. I just want you to know that, you know what? I'm doing okay, and I'm doing okay because of you. And that brought my heart so much love. And then I got another email, and then I got another comment. And this whole freaking week has been nothing but comment and message and inbox and email of all the freaking people that are doing okay. And it made me so freaking happy. I literally could get choked up right now because the amount of disappointment, the amount of just disheartenment that I guess I had last week was so easily overrid, if you will, with the love and with the support, with the validation to know that there are so many more people out there that are okay than are not. There are so many more people out there that are okay on the path, doing the work, being accountable, being responsible, doing the healing work that we all got to do that just don't pipe up, that I just don't hear about. And that is just so typical. We tend to hear the bad over the good. We tend to focus on the bad over the good, so much so that it could actually delude us into thinking that there is more bad than good. And there's not, because light is powerful, because light has already won, because even though I slipped off and I needed y'all to remind me, the group of us light workers that are activated and doing the work, we are way bigger, okay? So many more numbers for us than there are for them. And I cannot thank you, each and every single freaking one of you that reached out to me over this past week to remind me of that. So if you're in the background, if you don't drop comments and you just listen every day because you're on your path, you're on your journey, and this information, this content helps you, validates your experience, keeps you on track, keeps you feeling like you're not alone and that you're connected with the greater, grander collective of us doing the work and moving forward and alchemizing this darkness into light, I thank you so much. I love you. I'm proud of you. Keep doing what you're doing. Literally heart chakra wide open over this past week. And I cannot thank you enough for being on this side of the light. So before I start, getting all choked up even more so, I just also want to say thank you to those that have been showing a little bit of love and support on my new playlist. If you haven't subscribed to What the Fact playlist, I'm going to recommend you do so. So what have I put out already? Well, first of all, the energy guide tutorial. Thank you for each and every one of you who signed up to that free membership to my website, to this energy dashboard to keep you sane, to keep you on the right track. We talked about elemental energy. Yes, for those of you who had messaged me, I do have a whole course, a whole little workshop on my website that will dive into your elemental energy profile, show you what it is that you're made of, show you how to activate the elements in your profile, how to interact with the people in your life, and how to manifest. I love that so many of you were interested in learning a little bit more about the elemental energy, because it isn't something that is talked about a lot, especially, you always hear of astrology and numerology and, moon energies and all that kind of stuff. Elemental energy kind of gets, swept under the rug, so to speak. It fascinates me. I love it. I'm so glad y'all were interested in it. And yes, for those of you who are interested in diving more into your own energy profile, definitely head to my website, take the course. You will not be disappointed. And I just put out a birth chart episode on what your birth chart is, how to find it, what that's all about, because I do plan on doing several more episodes on kind of jumping into your birth chart. And the episode that I put out right before the full moon was how to identify where the full moon or new moon or any other astro event is taking place in your chart and what that may mean for you. So I always have a lot of people ask me, like, how do I find out where this full moon is going to be taking place in my chart and how it's going to affect me? Well, I did a whole freaking episode on it. It was like 20 minutes of showing you different charts, different people's, charts, and how the full moon was going to affect them, and, aspects to their natal placements and the whole 9 yards. So I will be, again, expanding on that whole series, but you got to subscribe to it because, of course, YouTube is blocking that particular series because they just dislike my, content, knowledge. God forbid we empower people. So I do really, and I apologize for that noise in the background, puppy popping off, but I really do encourage you to subscribe to that playlist because I'm dropping more and more knowledge. It's coming out hot. It's coming out heavy. Also, ask me questions. If you want me to talk about something, ask a question on those particular episodes. I'm making a list. I have a whole list put together of things that I'm going to be talking about. So whatever's on your mind, whatever you want to hear about, drop me a line. Drop it in the comment. Ask a question. I'll put it on the list and we'll talk about it. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the Ascension symptoms for this week. So keep in mind that this week is meant to stabilize our energy. So that might mean that we're going to feel a little bit low, a little bit slow, a little bit heavy in our bodies. Now, we do have a Sun and Saturn opposition taking place early Sunday morning. This is a big deal. The Sun being in Leo, of course, sits across from Saturn retrograde in Aquarius energy. And Saturn, Mr. Karma himself, likes to kind of trigger that negative narrative in our mind. We really start questioning ourselves. We get a little bit of a reality check. We see the obstacles, we see the challenges, and honestly, the wind just generally gets knocked out of our sails. Because this is a stable time, we're likely to feel very unstable. I know it seems like an oxymoron, but in order to actually get to our goal, we have to live in the extreme of our goal. This particular energy is likely going to kind of create a lot of rigidity, not only in our thoughts and in our feelings, but in our physical bodies. We are going to kind of freeze up, if you will. Now, that may mean that you technically get a little bit colder than normal. Even if the sun is out and it's warm out, you might just find that your overall body temperature is cold. We might feel that tension arise in our sciatica, going all the way down from our hips, our thighs, and our knees, and our calves, and our ankles, all the way down to our toes. Why is that? Well, because that's where we store fear. And right now, we are fearing making the moves that we have to make in order to move forward. Spiritually, energetically speaking, we've already jumped, okay? Our energy has already been projected to the goal, to the reality in which we want to manifest. That was just something that naturally happened in the Lionsgate portal. But now, we're in our physical body. We're in our physical realm. We're in our physical circumstances. We're in our physical environment. And now, things are starting to look a lot tougher than they did when we were, riding high on hopes and dreams. And we're recognizing the energy, the effort that it's going to take in our willpower, in our determination to actually stay the course. And again, when Negative Nancy kicks in, that is the part of ourselves that starts speaking fear into our dreams, that starts ripping up our faith, our confidence, our self-esteem. Now, this is, again, necessary in order for us to kind of recognize where it is that our fear is alive and well. That's the only way that we can address it. But physically speaking, we are going to feel it from our hips all the way down to our toes. Now, many of us have been feeling that tug of war, especially as we approach that Lionsgate portal, because we had different timelines to choose from. We had different choices, different decisions, different directions, different paths that we had to choose from. And again, I want to remind you, maybe it's not your ego in this conscious realm, this conscious avatar that we're making those decisions. Maybe it's your higher self. And you won't know what choices, decisions, paths, and directions your higher self chose for you until we start seeing the manifestation of those physical circumstances actually take shape in our lives, which again, we will start to see as we move into Virgo season. But this tug of war is now coming up again because, again, Negative Nancy got us questioning everything. We're feeling frozen in time. We're feeling stuck. We're feeling blocked. We're feeling restricted. We don't know how it is that we are going to manifest this particular reality, vision, and dream that we've been kind of hoping for and praying for. So the tug of war happens this week between knowing in our heart space and our soul space what it is we want, need, desire, what it is that we actually want to be living, what it is we're actually craving, versus questioning everything based off of our current circumstances in reality. Now, if you've been listening to me for any amount of time, you know that the minute that we have this elevated emotion, this vision, this dream that feels so right to us in our soul space, suddenly we get knocked down a couple of pegs and we come back down into our physical bodies. We take a good look around at our physical environment, and then we start using that to actually base what is possible for ourselves off of our physical lives. That is a problem because you know what? We need to detach from this physical matrix, this physical avatar in order to fly high with our higher selves to see the bigger vision of what is actually possible. And that comes down to belief. And as we've been talking about Mercury being in its place of power in Virgo, this is about mind over matter. In our mind space, when we align with our highest self, we know what's true. We know what's possible. We know what we want. We know what excites us. We know what our heart is asking us to do. But the minute that we move into that mental plane and we let our ego take over, we start picking things apart. We start questioning things. We start really just sucking the magic out of the possibilities that our heart just illuminated to us. And we start getting down to the nitty gritty, a little bit negative, if you will, based off of our current details and circumstances. So with this tug of war, there's going to be a lot of arguing internally and probably projected out into the physical realm in your personal relationships. There's going to be a lot of arguing. Who are we going to let lead? Our heart or our head? Our ego or our higher self? It is going to be a tug of war. So we also have an element this week that is going to have us hyper-focused, hyper-fixated, and then unfocused and damn near confused. So this ebb and flow comes at us because, again, we are rounding out the Leo season that has been a huge activator in our heart chakra. We are getting this tug of war between being hyper-focused, having that knowing, being jacked up, and then losing that focus altogether, mostly because of that Neptune and Pisces energy this week, making a couple of aspects that will kind of derail what it is that we were focused on, what it is that we did know to be true. We do have to kind of jump into the deep end of being hyper-focused and then get out of that deep end and jump into the other pool of pure confusion in order for us to find that balanced point, that middle ground. We will find it, but it's going to come at us towards the end of the week under that last quarter moon in Taurus. This is going to create a lot of restlessness, some agitation, some anxiety, some anticipation. Why? Because we're still feeling that big change, that big transformation, yet there's no evidence of it, right? We feel it energetically. We feel it. We know that something's happening. But when you look around, everything's the same. Nothing's changing. That is creating a lot of disheartening emotions coming up. We want to make big moves. We feel that impulse, especially towards the end of the week when Mars is wrapping up his final degrees in Taurus. He wants to be productive. He wants to make change. He wants to move ahead. He wants to assert himself. But the opportunity to actually see that manifest in our physical realm is nil. It's an energetic shift that we are currently making, again, preparing for Virgo season, which will provide the opportunity for us to start seeing those changes in our physical realm. So, does anxiety feel good? Nope. Restlessness feel good? Nope. Anticipation feel good? Nope. They all border on anger, and that anger comes from the, emotion of feeling like you're powerless, feeling like you don't have control. And so we try to exert our control out into the world, and that can create a lot of power exchanges that don't go out so well. Again, Mars, god of war, right? Yes, passionate, desires, for sure, but also anger and frustration. And we have to be very cautiously aware, especially towards the end of this week, under that last quarter moon in Taurus, at that 26 degree, when Mars is at the very ending degrees of Taurus energy, preparing to jump into Gemini energy. There's going to feel that anger, that irritation, that frustration come up because we thought we'd be in a different place by now. We thought we'd be able to actually make the changes, see the changes, be in the changes. They're not here yet. That in itself is super, super frustrating. But we have a lot of hope coming at us this week because there's a lot of energy that's going to create some wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, insight, some info, some details that just come out of nowhere. So this is literally out of the blue week. Why? Because we need to expect unexpected opportunities. Why? Because Uranus is definitely on the roster this week. He is standing in the spotlight, and he brings a whole lot of wild card energy. But with that wild card energy comes a lot of, let's say, central nervous system activation. Even more than that, we're going to feel a lot of pressure in our crown. We might feel dizzy. We might feel pressure in our head. We might have hard time focusing, hard time concentrating, hard time putting into words what it is that we're thinking and feeling. And let me just say this, there is likely going to be a roller coaster this week that has us manic one day, right? In an elated state of happiness. Super optimistic, super confident, and love with the world and love with the possibilities. Let me tell you, it's an over-exaggerated level of happiness that is not sustainable. We will crash the day after. You will be at your highest peak point in this mania and then at your lowest peak point. Honestly wondering if you have a mental health issue, being that high and then this low. Prepare for it. There will be a high, there will be a low. There will be a considerable crash in our attitude, in our energy, in our emotions, in our thought. This is going to make it really hard to understand what we're going through. And essentially speaking, what we're going through is the last layer of defragging before we enter into the new reality, the new earth that we energetically have been working so hard on actually manifesting. We have to kind of get shook up. We have to get tore down. We have to feel those high highs. We have to be humbled with those low lows, stripping us away, getting us very raw, very real, very vulnerable for what is about to take place when we enter into Virgo season, which is a lot of elbow grease work, right? We have to be disciplined. We have to reorganize. We have to restructure not only our heart, not only our head, but our actual physical realms. This is when we start seeing the manifestation of what it is that we've been working on in our inner realms. But this week is like the last shed, if you will, before entering into the newest version of ourselves and of our reality. So, well, instability, what does that lead to? Stability. What does a breakdown lead to? Breakthrough. What does confusion lead to? Clarity. What does confusion and chaos lead to? Clarity and order. And let me just tell you, Virgo season is all about taking the chaos and making order out of it. That's where we get the restructuring and the reorganizing coming in, not only in our mental plane, in our heart space, but in our physical realms as well. But as you know, as we near the end of a particular season, of a particular energy, the volume is all the way up. The intensity is super turned up. And because of that, we're going to feel like we can't breathe. We're going to feel like our heart chakra is just cracking wide open. It's going to explode. It's going to just come right out of our chest. We can barely swallow. We can barely breathe. That's okay. We have to breathe through it. This is how we recalibrate our energetic system, our physical system as well. We are going to feel like we're in a state of delusion. Why? Because those high highs are so freaking high. They're so beautiful. We're wearing our rose-colored glasses. We're seeing life for the way that we want to see it, maybe not for the way that it is. And then, we crash the next day and the universe slaps those rose-colored glasses off of us. And then we're actually shocked and have the audacity to see life as it is instead of the way that we wanted it to be. And then are just angry that we weren't able to see certain details or certain situations for the way that they actually are because we missed it. Why? Because we only wanted to see the good. And right now we have to focus on the reality, which often carries a lot of bad, in order for us to acknowledge it, to integrate it, so that we can move on from it. The delusion will lead to later disappointment. So whatever it is that you're focused on, whatever it is that you're thinking and feeling, when you are riding that roller coaster and you're on a high, you can expect the next day, maybe two, to feel absolutely destroyed from that dream state that you found yourself in. Even more than that, we're going to feel like we're going cray-cray because our memories are being defragged this week. What do I mean by that? Well, we are a computer. We are an operating system. we are going through what I would call the rewriting of our operating system as we prepare to jump into a new operating system when Virgo season comes and we start getting that timeline lined up. We start facing our new truth, our new reality, start manifesting certain elements that we've been trying to conjure up. It's going to feel like we're forgetting something. It's going to feel like we just can't put our finger on it. Like something's missing. Like we're forgetting to do something, or we should be somewhere, but we can't remember. And sometimes we can't remember certain situations that have already happened in our lives. And we're going to say, am I losing my damn mind? And hopefully you're going to remember this Ascension forecast and me saying that you're not losing your mind, you're losing your egoic memory. Your egoic memory stores all of the thoughts, all of the emotions connected to the conditions that you were raised under that are keeping your ego in a responsive situation going through life. Did you know that the first 7 years of a child's mind is technically where it is that we build our thoughts, our beliefs, the way we process, the way we adapt in life, and then we spend our whole human adult existence making choices and operating through life based off of what we formulated in the first 7 years of our life? This is why it's so important if you have a child, if you are gifted with the role of raising a child, that you spend the first at least 7 years trying to mold and shape the wonderment, the curiosity, the empowerment of that child, because that is the operating system that they are going to feed off of and base their life off of for their human existence. And what we're going through right now is a state of remembrance of who it is that we are in a spiritual state, in an energetic state. Therefore, we need to delete some files from our egoic avatar experience. There's just not enough room. And when we talk about light codes, this is what happens, is that we go through a release, we go through a purge in our physical bodies. That's why we have the ascension symptoms that we do, because we have to get out the pain, the trauma, anything that is stored in our bodies that is preventing us from remembering our highest, truest, energetic self. And when we essentially defrag our egoic experience, we make room for the new light codes coming in that get activated to help remind us our truest power, which is God's source. We all have God's source within us. That's why we're here. God, the creator, source, whatever it is that you'd like to call him, doesn't matter. He actually has no name. It's just humans that need to name him something. And I say him very loosely because God has no sex, creator has no sex. And if we actually want to get down to it and we actually want to be human enough to identify a certain sex with the creator, it's got to be a woman. Women are walking around with portals between their legs, and we're silly enough to think that man, God, is a man to create all this? Hell no. We'll get into that in a different episode of What the Fact. Again, another good reminder to subscribe to that playlist. But I digress. What I'm trying to get at here is that we're going through a defragging process, preparing us to free up some space for new memories that are light code activated, that are higher self activated. We're going to need those particular light codes as we move into Virgo season and start manifesting a physical reality that our energetic higher self feels happy to live in. So there's this whole freaking process that we're going through. This week is adjustment period week. We need the adjustment in our headspace, in our heart space. We need the adjustment in our overall energy. We need the adjustment to take place in the recalibration of our physical bodies. We need to basically prepare for that green light go ahead to actually move forward. We have to tweak a couple things. And as I mentioned, from the full moon in Aquarius to the last quarter moon in Taurus, a lot of information, a lot of aha moments, a lot of light bulbs go off that is totally going to change our plans. What you currently think you are going to do right now will be different by the end of this week. And it needs to be, because there's some adjustments, some tweaking, some fine recalibration, reorganizing, restructuring that needs to go on in our inner realms before we can get to work in our outer realms. So pay attention to your ears. Now, this isn't just downloads, okay? Many times when we get ringing or like high-pitched sirens or sound in our ears, that's light code coming in. We already got the codes in us, okay? We already absorbed that back at the Lionsgate Peak portal under the full moon. They're in us. Now what needs to happen is they need to be activated. But what we're going to feel physically is that there's like water in our ears, or they're clogged, they're muffled. You know, when you get in a plane and your ears get to a certain state and then all of a sudden they pop and you didn't even know that they needed to pop. But then suddenly you can hear clearer and everything is like, you know, very, very, I'm going to say vibrationally and frequency attuned, right? You can hear things crystal clear, like very crisp. And you didn't even know that your ears were clogged, that they were muffled, that there was anything wrong with them. You didn't even know that they needed to be popped. A lot of this is because of the information coming in through the crown that has already been absorbed, that needs to be activated, that needs to be formulated and adjusted, recalibrated as we go through this defragging week. And, you know, with the ears, if the ears are under pressure, then our sinuses need to be under pressure. Our sinuses are our third eye. Our third eye is rapidly changing due to the information that we're able to perceive now because of the vibration and frequency that we're currently vibrating at, means that we get to see different things with our physical eyes in a bigger spectrum of light. And we get to hear things because we are tapping into a bigger spectrum of sound, and so on and so forth. So our physical sensory system is basically going through a defrag process this week as well. And we're definitely going to feel that pressure in our heads, in our ears, in our sinuses. Now, bathroom trips, I think more frequent bladder trips than bowel trips. Many of us were all bound up and seeing that huge release in the bowel issue under the full moon. Full moons are notorious for a total release of toxicity and sludge that we've been holding on to. But the bathroom trips are going to be more frequent because we need to be hydrating more. This week, we have to clean out the detox system, which is our kidneys, our liver, right? So you need to put the water to you. We need to be kind of activating and helping this recalibration, this defragging situation. We need to add water. Water, as you know, is the huge conductor of electricity that helps the light codes and the information get to the area of the body that we need to break up the stagnant energy and break up those energy blockages for the new light codes to actually have a place to set up shop. And so, you know, with more water comes more bathroom trips. Embrace the process, embrace the cleanse. We need to be at tip-top shape moving into Virgo season. Virgo season also rules over health and wellness, especially where the physical body and the mental health are concerned. It would be a great time to start getting into that frame of mind and that state of being prior to entering into Virgo season. Last week, we talked about itchiness. This week, I'm going to talk about itchiness as well, but in a concentrated area of our fingers, of our palms. Now, the reason why I want to bring this up is because, yes, itchiness does show signs of healing, but what we're healing this week, what we're activating this week is our palm chakras. Now, way back in the, let's call it genetically modified stage of human alteration, our palm chakras were blocked by a DNA code. That DNA code is being cleaned out and reactivated, coming back online, and therefore our power, right, that we're able to channel through our bodies is trying to come out through our palm chakras once again. This is why I say itchiness anywhere in your body is a sign of healing, of recoup, of recovery. It's a beautiful thing. It might feel uncomfortable, but it's a beautiful thing. But I want you to pay attention to the itchiness on your hands. Maybe you have an itchy underneath your fingernail that you just can't scratch. Maybe it's in the inner webs between your fingers. Maybe it's straight up on your palm. This is going to be a huge indicator where in your DNA makeup, there are strands being healed in order to reactivate the power that you're able to actually channel through your palm chakras. So please pay attention to that. I feel like the last thing that I want to talk about is the eyes being a little bit foggy, being a little bit hazed over, feeling like there's something in your eye. Again, we talked about the head pressure coming in from the crown, the ears, the sinus pressure. Our eyes have to be affected as well. And right now, we're living in a false reality. And that false reality is falling away very, very easily. And while this is falling away, the new Earth is just not obtainable in the light spectrum that we're able to perceive with our physical eyes. So it's almost like we have to continue to rub our eyes. We can't even believe what we're seeing in our life, good, bad, or otherwise. But we're also trying to focus because, again, the recalibration is kind of bumping up or empowering, if you will, our physical senses. And every single time we reach a new level of awareness or enlightenment or consciousness or a vibration and frequency, our whole physical body has to change and adjust in order to be able to perceive that information coming in at that particular light spectrum or at that particular sound spectrum, whatever the case may be. Our eyes are preparing for the brand new focus, the tunnel vision that we're going to need in Virgo season to actually bring the elements of our new realities to life. But this week, we're just going to have a hard time adjusting to our physical surroundings because we're seeing things from our third eye being reactivated, recalibrated, reopened in a new level of perception. And therefore, and keep in mind, we're questioning things big time this week, where we're really having a hard time trusting what our eyes are seeing because there is an overlap, multidimensional overlap. Again, the light spectrum popping off. There are things that we are seeing that we don't think that we can physically see, and then we question whether they've been there or whether we're imagining things. Again, trust the process. Again, just validate that your body is going through a recalibration system, resetting, preparing for a brand new operating system, and that our sensory system is what is going to give us the most indication that we are going through that change, that we are going through that transformation. So guys, that's all that I have for you this week. I hope that it was helpful. I hope that you monitor yourself as you move through this week. I hope that you just understand that there are going to be some peaks, but there's definitely going to be some valleys that we're going to have to trudge ourselves through as well. It's important to trust the process. It's important to try to enjoy the ride, even at the scary parts. It's important to know that you're not on the ride by yourself, that there are many, many of us on the exact same roller coaster going through the exact same thing that you are. It's just not in your physical realm to rely upon, to trust. It's very rare that activated light workers are actually in the physical realm of one another. Again, we are spread out for good reason. We do have to act as the energetic web, the energetic net that is keeping the good energy in to the earth so that we can morph this MFer into new earth and preventing the not so nice energies from actually entering into our earthly realm like they've been used to doing for centuries and eons. That is over. The portal is shut down. We're no longer accepting negative entities into this particular matrix. Whoever is negative and lower vibrational and dark force and still here, they are going to be pushed out in a very hard way, but there's no more re-entry. So us light workers, we got to hold the grid down. Okay. So I want to thank you for being a part of that. I also want to thank you for tuning in, not only for me, but for yourself. I want to thank you for the love, for the support that you're always throwing my way. And you know what? We're going to get through this week too. I could not be happier, could not be prouder to be connected to all of you beautiful souls, regardless of whether you realize it or not. We are changing the world. And I want to thank you for being a part of that. I hope you have a great week. We'll talk to you soon.